The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the Handle Factory Community Clay Studio in Shelburne Falls, offering youth summer programs and spring adult classes in pottery and sculpture. HandleFactory.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by UMass Amherst School of Public Policy. Admissions now open for graduate programs in 2025. Learn how to become a changemaker at umass.edu/SPP.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, a second album from the first musical guest we had in this building, the Lucky Shots, will join us for Live Music Friday before you can catch them at their album release show at JJ's in Florence, along with someone else in this room's band.
Who could you possibly be talking about? There are like four of us here.
Well, it's Brian Boyles.
We'll also head to the Southern Berkshires to watch the restoration of a classic groundbreaking film from 1948. Jacob's Pillow is teaming up with Triplex Cinemas to show The Red Shoes this weekend. And we'll chat with Norton Owen and Lynn Garafolo, about the many ways the movie continues to be influential.
But first, just next door to us in Holyoke is an organization that's teamed up with NEPM on many projects, highlighting stories of Western Mass that seek to encourage the arts all across the Bay State. Mass Humanities contains multitudes where support for artistic and archival endeavors are concerned.
And now that support is being threatened. This week, the organization was informed that its NEH grants were being terminated immediately. This leaves not just their ongoing programs, such as the Clemente Course in the Humanities, Smithsonian on Main Street, Reading Frederick Douglass Together, in question, not to mention the grant programs they'd planned for this year.
With us to talk about all that Mass Humanities has planned before and is still planning now, even after these cuts, is Executive Director Brian Boyles. Brian has forayed into radio and I believe DJing, so it could theoretically be you who is playing at JJ's Tavern tonight, right?
It's true. That's my fallback job.
As well as writing, and was previously the director of the Louisiana Humanities Center, while also dedicating 10 years to the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. Brian brings Mass Humanities his conviction that this moment in time calls for the humanities now more than ever. Oh, the humanities.
Oh, the humanities.
We were planning on having you in, Brian, to talk about all the great stuff happening in 2025 in sort of commemoration of the beginnings of the American Revolution in Massachusetts. However, this Tuesday you received a letter from none other than Michael McDonald, who's the acting chairman of the National Endowment for the Humanities. Who knew that the white-haired Doobie Brother would do this to you? But it says in this letter... And I will just...
I would say that Michael McDonald has a lot more respect for DEIA in general.
I would say, given the makeup of the Doobie Brothers at least. This is what part of the letter says. Your grant no longer effectuates the agency's needs and priorities and conditions of the grant agreement and is subject to termination due to several reasonable causes as outlined in blah, blah, blah. NEH has reasonable cause to terminate your grant in light of the fact that the NEH is repurposing its funding allocations in a new direction in furtherance of the president's agenda. Your grant immediate termination is necessary to safeguard the interests of the federal government, including its fiscal priorities. The termination of your grant represents an urgent priority for the administration. Again, this is a letter from Michael McDonald, the acting chairman of the National Endowment for Humanities, not really the Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers. No. Where do you see in what it spells out in the grant that they are focusing on to say that it needed immediate termination? Is there any logic to you as the director of Mass Humanities where you were out of step with exactly what the administration was looking for in regards to your grant?
Absolutely not.
How much was that grant?
$1.3 million.
What was that grant allocated for that is now immediately gone?
The operation of our organization, several key programs, and in one instance, the convening of the people who read Frederick Douglass all around the state to meet and decide what they want to do next with that program.
So that was not one instance of the reading, but the people planning on the reading of what to the slave is the 4th of July?
It's the 4th of July.
That's correct. And it's a speech about the Declaration of Independence, and we were getting ready to bring those folks together this fall in order to prepare for the 250th and to continue Douglass's work. And it's a small budget number in the overall scope of things, but I think it indicates to you the type of damage that is done. And that is not to mention the damage that is done to salaries and to people's livelihoods and to the search for truth. All of that was not explained, obviously, in the letter that we got. And I think that we can talk about the text of the letter, and I think its context is also important to know. I received at 12:39 a.m. in my junk mail, next to an update from Zoom, an offer for some free advertising tips, the cessation of a relationship that has been going on for 50 years, that was rooted in the Great Society, that impacts thousands of people. And I had colleagues in every state have the exact same experience, because that is where they have placed an organization and a foundation, the National Endowment for Humanities, that began with the words, democracy demands wisdom, and now apparently ends in spam.
Ironic. We're speaking with Brian Boyles, the head of Mass Humanities, which is based in Holyoke, but deals with humanities across the Bay State. And so this is not unique to Massachusetts. This is the National Endowment for the Humanities. But did every single state, as far as you know, receive this letter? Or were there some states whose departments of humanities were not in violation of this presidential edict?
Or perhaps you're thinking that they may not have quite caught it in their spam folder the way that you did.
That was an issue, but in fact, every state council received one, as well as the 6 territorial jurisdictional councils, as well as what we think so far hundreds, maybe thousands of grantees around the country who had already had funds committed to them by NEH.
I'm imagining that not every single state reads Frederick Douglass's landmark speech. So it wasn't that particular event that has been going on for years now that was targeted in light of all of the targeting of DEI and things of that nature that the Trump administration has been targeting. So you are not unique in this, or Massachusetts is not unique in that. And one of those things is not what triggered it.
That's correct.
What percentage of this NEH funding makes up Mass Humanities' overall budget?
35% of my annual budget.
35%. So that is a huge part, a third of Mass Humanities.
Yes, a little over a third, yeah.
And we're speaking with Brian Boyles of Mass Humanities. This immediate termination, what were the immediate impacts? When these funds were pulled earlier this week, April 2nd, what immediately had to stop?
Well, to be clear, this happened Thursday morning. So it was 12:39 on Thursday. So if you could see me in Radio Land, you would see I haven't slept much. But I can say that the immediate impacts are to be felt. Mass Humanities have been planning. Mass Humanities is fortunate to be in Massachusetts and to have some cash reserves and some other sources of revenue. There's one of us in every state. There are people being laid off right now. There are the equivalent of Mass Humanities in some states will be closing their operation because of this. I think we can talk about what the impact means to projects that are out there that were in motion. For us, we now have to figure out how to deliver on the commitments we have made to do the grant-making work, to do the Douglass work, to do Museum on Main Street with the Smithsonian, to do the Clemente Course. What I can say now is we're going to find a way to do those things, and we need help to do that. But we are not here to allow these folks through junk mail to stop the words of Frederick Douglass. We are not here to stop making the 250th and a meaningful commemoration. How we do that is going to take some work, and it's going to take some partners being flexible with us. And I think that so far we've had good signs with that. But I think the impact around the country is going to be shaking out as we speak, because these organizations were set up to ensure that the money did not stay in Washington, that if we take a very state-centric approach to government, that there was an affiliate that was responsible for doing outreach, for making sure that these funds efficiently reached local communities. So when you say what is the impact, that impact could be a kid not being able to go to a library program. It could be a film that doesn't get made. It could be a teacher who doesn't get training in the history of enslavement. It could be all those things. The beauty of this is that these things were set up to respond to the needs in their state. We are all committed as apolitical organizations, multiple audits. We have had these relationships for, again, over 50 years. And to have them disrupted with the language you used, which really had absolutely no root in what we do, other than someone, a group of men, showed up one day and said, "This agency, we want all your money, and y'all need to get out." That's a kidnapping of the cultural funding of an entire country done over the course of 2 days.
Has there been anything released about what the NEH's current line of values are?
Because this is vague, as we read from, you can't cite where you may be in noncompliance with this. It says, reasonable causes as outlined in 2 CFR 200, this clause in your contract. There are no clear guidelines from the NEH, the National Endowment for the Humanities?
We fill out an application every year and tell them what our projects are going to be. This is a special relationship we have as their official, legislatively mandated affiliate. This isn't me coming to do a project. There are regulations, and we get a visit from them every 5 years. We get audited. We submit all those things. There's never been a blip in any of that. Now, what are the values? Certainly every administration puts different values on all of these agencies. But let us hear what the original founding legislation said.
And this is 50 years ago.
This is 50 years ago, but this has been the word is bond for us and for every one of our colleagues around the country. Democracy demands wisdom and vision in its citizens. It must therefore foster and support a form of education and access to the arts and humanities designed to make people of all backgrounds and wherever located masters of their technology and not its unthinking servants. That is not out-of-date language, but it feels like it's very much conflicting with the approach to our democracy that these gentlemen are taking.
And if they were masters of their technology, they'd figure out how not to send it to your spam folder.
Rich with irony.
Or, share things over social media, like war plans over social media. But, that's neither here nor there. What does this do to... This feels like part of the push to make a lot of the onus for these organizations to be on the states themselves rather than through federal government. And a little bit of it does sound, as you mentioned in your words, a bit like theft. But what does it mean to take away the central organization and just make this all state run?
Honestly, if that was the plan, I would like to know. If there was an ability to actually make government efficiency, and let's just play this out, they wanted to reduce staff in Washington. We're still here, efficiently doing the work of government. We're required to match those funds dollar to dollar. Mass Humanities happens to match them $2 to every dollar, some years $3, because we have partnerships in the state, because we have private funding. Many states don't have that. This is their only funding. So, to come in a shady bot-like message that is just over is not to say, hey, we have a philosophy here. It's to say we're just going to run up and break a bunch of stuff. And what is the total funding? What are we talking about? $200 million. You can't make a blockbuster movie with $200 million. That's how much this country was dedicating to the arts and the humanities. NEA gets the same amount of money. Now, I'm not here to say the blockbuster movies aren't right. I'm here to say the funding wasn't enough anyway. So to take it away is not a matter of saving money. It's a matter of silencing democracy. And that is in the character of who we're dealing with.
Brian Boyles from Mass Humanities was quoted in an article in the Boston Globe that talks about these massive sweeping cuts and how they'll affect Massachusetts. The Trump administration terminating $1.3 million grants to the Mass affiliate of the National Endowment for Humanities, Mass Humanities. The Cumtuck Valley Memorial Association losing $300,000 in grant funding. The American Antiquarian Society in Worcester losing $380,000. The Porter Phelps Huntington Museum in Hadley losing $40,000, and on and on and on. Okay, the bummer part of the show is just about over. We are going to talk about what you have in mind and going forward with Mass Humanities. What we originally had asked you to come in this week to talk about that is more positive.
Indeed.
Despite what Michael McDonald sent to you.
Birthdays. Because birthdays are way more interesting, way more happy.
Yeah.
And is there a Doobie Brothers song about birthdays? I don't know.
But there is a Doobie Brothers song about to play right now. Humanities won. There we go. What a fool believes.
We believe in hope sometimes.
Coming up, more with Brian Boyles, Executive Director of Mass Humanities.
On the 250th anniversary of the start of the Revolutionary War, after which we'll have Live Music Friday with the Lucky Shots, and discover the importance of 1948's The Red Shoes through a showing of the remastered film at the Triplex Cinemas.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. Now to talk about revolution with Brian Boyles from Mass Humanities. Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. And what we were originally going to talk to you about is the connection of the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. No, 1776 is the Declaration of Independence.
Right.
But the beginning of the Revolution is in 1775 and has origins right here in the Bay State.
Indeed. So you're on the Special Commission for the 250th anniversary and co-chair of Everyone 250. Why are we celebrating 250 years as opposed to waiting for, well, no, never mind. I have answered my own question there.
Because is everybody across the country celebrating the 250th, or is this a specific Mass Humanities endeavor? Because of Massachusetts, because of Boston, because of the Boston Mass,
because of the Boston
because of all of the things.
Well, I think that the history required us to start celebrating earlier. And I think preparations are happening all over the country. So we know that in Massachusetts, we believe ourselves to be the very best in all things. And
I know I do.
Right. Yes. You're very boorish about that. But the Virginias, the Pennsylvanias, they are also out there celebrating this stuff.
So one of the endeavors is Promises of the Revolution, which is offering storytelling grants. Tell us a bit about that.
Mass Humanities has been doing the Expand Massachusetts Stories initiative since 2021. So this was a feeling that people needed to be able to walk into their local museum or their historical society and recognize their stories on the walls and in the stories that are told. So we've had an amazing experience doing that. We've dedicated over $1.5 million, $3 million actually total in this time period towards that. This year, we looked at the 250th, and we understand that there is an aspect of the celebration that is the tri-cornered hat, that is the reenactment, that is very straight ahead and very 1976. And we said more people need access to this commemoration, not so they can simply wrap themselves in the red, white, and blue, but so that they can stake their own claims to the inheritance of this nation, their own place in those promises. And the promises of the revolution, I think, came out of conversations we had as a team. We just talked a lot about NEH and the impacts. And I just want to say, the people I work with are amazing. And if they're listening, I want them to know how much I care about them. We came up with that idea together because we said, there's promises that were made. There's promises that were broken. There's promises that are still out there to be realized. And I think this is where we try to set ourselves apart maybe from our overlords, believe that we should trust the people of Massachusetts to tell us what the revolution really means. So this funding opened up on March 10th. There's a deadline of June 9th. These are $20,000 grants. We hope to give out at least $600,000 in funding. If you know anyone who has an extra $600,000, we're interested. But what we want to do is make sure that a statewide commemoration happens. Because you asked about the celebration. I think there's lots of exciting stuff going on in Concord and in Boston in the next couple of months. How does Western Mass, how does Central Mass, how does the North Shore and the South Shore, how do they all feel about this commemoration? Sometimes we don't go and ask what happened here, and not just what happened here in 1776, but what's been happening here ever since.
Mm-hmm. Which is an interesting thing to look at, especially considering the armory is right down the street.
Right.
And how that fits into, some of this framework. Not to mention that, the revolution looked a lot different than people like to portray it as, which I love bringing up with folks who don't know who Crispus Attucks is. Go find out. It's not as washed as people would proclaim it to be. So it's interesting that we're being given the tools to go and look into some more of that wherever we happen to be in the Bay State.
We're speaking with Brian Boyles from Mass Humanities. The Smithsonian, which is also currently under fire, has a traveling exhibit that is about to debut in Buckland here in Western Mass that ties into the 250th.
This is one of the Smithsonian on Main Street exhibits?
The Museum on Main Street.
Yes,
yeah,
I
think
love
we talked
these.
about that a while back.
I got to go to my own Main Street in Turner's Falls and see one of these last year.
Yeah.
Tell us about this one that's debuting in Buckland next month.
So it kicks off, and the exhibition will actually be in the library at the Mohawk Trail Regional High School, which
Excellent.
we think is a
Oh,
great
that's
way to
awesome.
get started. We sign up for these every couple of years. We work with the Smithsonian, and we select 6 small towns to host them. And we knew the 250th was coming. We had a feeling that the relevance of democracy would not go away. And so we chose to bring this exhibition here and to work with these 6 organizations. Voices and Votes looks at everything from the very origins of American democracy, the relationship with the crown, up to presidential debates, yellow journalism, gerrymandering. And it allows people, and this is what Museum on Main Street does that's so beautiful, to see themselves in their own hometown in that larger story, right? So there's a central exhibition that will travel from town to town, but in each of those places, with support from Mass Humanities and the Smithsonian and other folks, the staff and the curators and the community will come together to say, and this is our part of the story. And they'll ask in the exhibition, why do you vote? What do you think the limits of our democracy and representation need to be? I think it comes obviously at a very important time. For us, it's a chance for rural people to really have the resources to do that kind of work, and that's not always the case, right?
The other big thing that we've mentioned a few times is reading Frederick Douglass together, which usually happens in and around the 4th of July, and that will continue this year, despite the major cuts from the NEH, right?
That's correct. We have applications open right now to host Frederick Douglass readings. I think you guys know that this has been a program that has grown and grown and has so much momentum over the last few years because communities are finding different ways to take those words and learn from them. Right. So certainly when Juneteenth became a national holiday, a lot more people were looking for work to do. And I think, and I credit one of Springfield's living legends, Dr. LaToya Bosworth, for being part of this. We have said you can fit Douglass in and Douglass in this speech in all through the calendar. It can't just be limited to the 4th of July. However you want to do it, as long as you are having an honest reflection and reading and access to these words, we're here for it. We had 60 readings last year. That was up from 19 in 2020.
That's a
And
huge-
they start in June and go through like
We've had
September.
them in February already.
Oh, wow.
UMass had one in February.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
Well, they're not in session in June, so like if
yeah,
you
you
want to
gotta-
get it
yeah,
in,
wanna
you
get
got
the
to get it
students
in
there.
during the school year.
totally.
Well, there is, if you are, concerned about these cuts that we were just talking about from the National Endowment for the Humanities and their impact on Mass Humanities and all of the other 49 humanities, and plus the territories as well. Mass Humanities does have a way that you can take action if you go to masshumanities.org. And I'll just quickly run down the 3 points there that Mass Humanities has listed: that you could write to your representative in Congress, that you could reach out to the local humanities organization to see how you could help, and you, of course, can donate. But all of this information can be found by subscribing to the mailing list or going to visit the website of Mass Humanities, which is masshumanities.org. We were hoping, Brian, that we would only be talking about all of the stuff going on for the 250th.
And asking how, like, as you mentioned, like getting us involved in bringing it to Western Mass, but curious how Mass Humanities itself and the Everyone 250 is looking at Western Mass and as part of their whole scope. But then things happened.
Yeah. We don't appreciate the timing, but we appreciate your being here.
Yes, for sure.
I appreciate you both. You're both revolutionary.
And thanks for your support in like making the that series of films that we got to check out with Erica Slocum, because they're just really fantastic slices of Black history in Western Mass.
Yeah, and EPM loves to tell stories too, and we've done many storytellings through Mass Humanities and your support, so thanks for that.
April 24th, the films are screening at Springfield Public Library, so make sure you go to our website and learn more about that too.
Oh,
Excellent.
even better.
Thanks again, Brian Boyles.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you. Later in the show, the Lucky Shots join us for Live Music Friday, but up next, Dance on Film at the Triplex Cinemas with the Red Shoes.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Real Pickles, a worker-owned cooperative in Greenfield producing organic fermented vegetables sourced from Northeast farms. More information at realpickles.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Window World of Western Mass, a local family business with experienced craftsmen offering skylights, siding, gutters, and doors. WindowWorldofWesternMA.com.
The Red Shoes. Daring the original musical that captures all the glamour of the south of France in exquisite technicolor.
The Red Shoes is a classic film written, produced, and directed by Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger. Released in 1948, The Red Shoes is widely considered to be the greatest film made about the world of ballet and one of the greatest films of all time.
The Triplex Cinema in Great Barrington and Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival are hosting a special fundraising screening of this cinematic masterpiece, The Red Shoes, this Saturday, April 5th at 3 p.m. Proceeds from the event will benefit the nonprofit Triplex Cinema.
Speakers at the screening will include Norton Owen, Director of Preservation for Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival, and Professor Emerita of Dance at Barnard College, Lynn Garafolo, who join us now.
Norton Owen is a curator, writer, and archivist with more than 5 decades of professional experience in dance. Since 1976, he's been associated with Jacob's Pillow. He's received numerous Lifetime Achievement Awards from Dance Magazine, Dance USA, and others, and his 50th anniversary at Jacob's Pillow will be honored by a season-long exhibition in Blake's Barn this summer.
And Lynn Garafolo, Professor Emerita of Dance at Barnard College, is a dance historian, critic, and author, a recipient of fellowships from the Social Science Research Council and National Endowment for the Humanities, and is an elected member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Thanks so much for being with us to talk about this.
Oh, it's a thrill.
Does that mean we go to you, Lynn, if we want an Oscar nomination, or is that the Academy that you're a part of?
I wear many hats. I also do exhibitions. I'm a very good cook.
Oh, nice. Good.
What a politic way to answer that.
Yeah, we're going to keep all of this in mind. And this film, The Red Shoes, I hadn't watched it prior to getting ready for this interview.
As opposed to, like, when this got brought up, I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely, because I did dance when I was younger, and I did film in college. And I'm like, oh, this is, A, my two loves coming together, and B, incredibly important to both, and how dance gets shot on film for the rest of time after this movie. So yes, I'm excited to talk about this.
Great. I'm interested to hear, Monty, that you just encountered it for the first time, though?
Yes, I watched it for the first time. I'd heard of it, but I never watched it. And it's just absolutely gorgeous in so many different levels. And I watched an interview with Martin Scorsese talking about the restoration of the film, and he had shown like sort of before and after things. It just looks incredible. And what they do with the camera work, in addition to celebrating ballet, is just phenomenal. But Norton, as an archivist with almost 50 years of experience with Jacob's Pillow, tell us what your first encounter with this film is and why you think it's important.
Well, I was a young dancer when I first saw it, and it really blew me away. And of course, I was able to see it first in a movie theater, which is rare these days. I mean, I was not watching it in 1948 or whatever, I will say, but now it is much more possible to see films on the home screen, which is, I assume, how you saw it, Monty.
Right.
But what we're able to do now in seeing it in the theater is more like what I remember my first experience being, which just knocked me out. I mean, I think that for many people in the dance field, this was a motivating factor in people getting into dance because it is so intoxicating, let's say. You know, you see the excitement, the color, the spectacle of dance in a way that makes you just want to say, I want to do that. And this restoration is something that has brought the film back to glory that I'm sure I was not seeing as a young person, because it is looking better than I think it has since the very beginning.
Or according to Scorsese, even better than it looked at the beginning, if that's even
Yeah,
possible.
because it's just cleaner, it's clearer.
Yeah.
A lot of the contrast that was intended is now really visible through like better film technology, which is makes it even better.
And that's the version you will see on Saturday at the Triplex Cinema in the afternoon.
The color is so gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just that it's cleaner and everything, but that the color has a sensuous quality that just draws you in. And it was such a contrast during the original release in Britain with the kind of life, the drabness of British life in the late 1940s. Everyone was rationed. Parts of London were still rubble after the war. And here was this glamorous, beautiful movie taking you into these magical worlds.
But it's not the first dance film. Can you talk, Lynn, a little bit about what dance looked like on film before this movie?
Well, there were lots of dance. The movie musical was a big thing in the 1930s, and what was big in the movie musical? It was dance. But these were chorus lines. But again, they tried to tap into the magic of movement and configurations. When you think of some of Busby Berkeley's movies, they're fantastic. But what's so interesting here is how there's a full-fledged ballet, almost 15 minutes,
Right.
incorporated into the movie, and how this is also connected to the plot, although not entirely so. It does have an independent existence. And moreover, it's a ballet. It's not just that someone has incipient ballet had ballet training, but they're a terrific tap dancer. But this is a real ballet, and you can see styles there, an older style from the 1930s of dancing, a newer style that's emerging in Britain in the late 1940s, Moira Shearer, the star. You see the surrealism of some of the settings and things. That's very much part of that atmosphere of the 1940s. And then you see this extraordinary glamour of life in Monte Carlo in this ballet company. Of course, they weren't making too much money, but it was still a great locale.
And we're speaking with Lynn Garafolo, the professor emerita of dance at Barnard College, and Norton Owen, who is director of preservation for Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival, who's helping to present this screening of The Red Shoes at the Triplex Cinema in Great Barrington this Saturday afternoon at 3. One of the things that stuck out to me was how many filmmakers I saw and after watching the film and watching on YouTube, going down that rabbit hole about how influential it was on so many filmmakers, not only in the way dance would then be portrayed on screen, but horror would be portrayed on screen, and then maybe culminating in the dance horror movie that is Black Swan. Can you talk about what they did in this film, The Red Shoes, that was so influential in the way dance was presented in a way that it hadn't been on screen before?
I mean, I think that there is, of course, a soap opera element, let's say, to this as well. You see that, and that has been the case with almost any dance film that I can think of, The Turning Point, Black Swan, as you mentioned, that always seems to be something that is required. Somehow what the Red Shoes did, which I'm not aware of it being done before that, was to present the world of dance in such a way that is, I think, true to the beauty of the art form, but being able to not just see it in a way that might be interesting to a dance audience, but is truly a gateway experience for people who maybe never thought of dance as something that interested them. But how can you not be when you see it in this way? It is just so colorful and so thoroughly entertaining.
What struck me about the cinematography behind it, though, is that you start out watching the dance on screen like you're watching it in a theater, but then all of a sudden you're in the dancer's body and you're spinning around and you're getting all these different views of the dance in a way that, John Carpenter has cited this movie about when Jason Voorhees is going to attack somebody in Halloween. You're looking through the murderer's eyes in the same way that these, shocking elements then pop up in front in this movie, The Red Shoes.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the bigger shifts in the way that dance gets portrayed in film, because before you're taking it from more of a vaudevillian audience standpoint, and The Red Shoes is really the first one that gets the cameras on stage. The camera almost becomes one of the choral dancers in showing how this ballet is working out, and it's really the first movie that does that shift in perspective to really get people in stage and in the work.
There have been some experimental things where you had people floating across the stage or somehow defying time, playing with time, but this was different, but it also was able to the camera was able to do things that audiences really love, even though you're not supposed to say it. For instance, I love the close-ups.
Oh, yeah.
I love the fact that you can see a dancer's face. I get pretty good tickets, but when I was younger, didn't get such great tickets. But even with opera glasses in pretty good seats, you still can't see the face the way it is, or some of the details, or some of the footwork, or what
Yeah.
it's like when the red shoes are taken off, or when she tries to stab that knife into the shoe. You can't see that. So you are drawn in both as an audience member and also in the theater now. You can see almost instantaneous changes of scenery thanks to technology. But back in 1946, if you had a panorama scene, someone was dragging ropes backstage
Right.
and changing it, or someone was flying through the air on wires. She doesn't have to do that. And today, dancers don't really have to do that, or sometimes they do.
Sometimes.
In the Kung Fu movies that I watch, which also have a lot of dance, there's also
There's
a lot of
wire
wires.
work.
A lot of wire work. They probably get extra for that.
Yeah, I bet they do. And we are speaking of the movie The Red Shoes, which will be screened this Saturday, April 5th, 3 p.m. at the Triplex Cinema in Great Barrington. It is a benefit for the Triplex, and it is presented in part with Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival, not far away from the Triplex Cinema. And we're speaking with Norton Owen, the Director of Preservation for Jacob's Pillow, and Professor Emerita of Dance at Barnard College, Lynn Garafolo. Lynn, this movie, in some ways, is a story within a story. So it's called The Red Shoes, and red shoes appear in this story as a ballet, but it also, the ballet itself in the movie is about the red shoes. Can you explain a little bit about the actual plot of this film?
Well, this is based on a fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen, The Red Shoes, and it's about these magical shoes that allow someone to dance forever and then must die when the shoes are taken off. But this takes on a whole new life, and it's peopled in the movie by all kinds of wonderful characters, like the Mad Shoemaker, who was one of the great choreographers and character dancers of the 20th century. Leonid Massine playing Grisha. There's also the way you're able to have flashbacks, or you're able to see things, or she's able to explore different aspects of herself as she runs through these fun fairs and these corridors and what look like bordellos and things, as though she's becoming a different person in all of these different incarnations. The movie adds so many psychological elements to her own character and allows the character, I think, to acquire far greater substance than in, say, Turning Point or something. This is not just a soap opera. This is also a woman's exploration of self and realization of self through her chosen art form. But it's also about a kind of pleasure that comes from this. It's a soap opera with a difference.
Yeah, Michael Powell, the director, said about the film is about dying for art, that art is worth dying for. And that comes across in so many different ways, not just with the dancers, but with the orchestra that is behind it, the people that are directing the orchestra. It really is in an age where we are literally devaluing the arts and pulling funds away from them. It's an important statement about how important art can be.
There's this wonderful exchange in the film when Moira Shearer, the lead, is asked the question, "Why do you want to dance?" And she answers the question with a question.
Why do you want to live?
I don't know exactly why, but I must.
That's my answer, too.
That does explain how crucial dance is to her life. And, what we see overall in the film is, from the story of being compelled to dance and being enabled to dance forever, in a sense, it's an allegory within the whole film, because you're seeing how she has to dance, that dance for her is this compulsion, and there is no question for her, but she must continue. And then within the larger framework of the film, then you see how that takes place in this 15-minute ballet, but then it gets really wild within the 15-minute ballet, because you suddenly are in these other realms where clearly she's working it out for herself psychologically. And the conductor, I love that scene where the conductor, who is one of her suitors, also just comes across the footlights, and the minute he comes into the spotlight, he goes from being dressed as a conductor to being her partner dressed in tights. And it's just like, what? This is a wild cinematic experience to see this. And yet it makes sense within the realm of the film, of course.
Ballet isn't real. So since the form itself isn't real, no one goes around doing fifth positions in grand jetés as they walk into the grocery store.
I beg to differ.
Although we
They do.
should.
But
That's
it's
when I
not
go to the
real.
bar, I'm going to use it as a bar.
I actually do sometimes because it's good stretches. And then sometimes
that's
I get
true.
into fifth and fourth just to see if I still can.
If you still can.
That's
That
me.
the form is so unreal
Yeah.
in itself means that these other elements within the form that are unreal are therefore possible and are made possible because of the unreality of we're not talking about realist art here.
And we're speaking about the film The Red Shoes, which will be screened at the Triplex in Great Barrington, a benefit for that nonprofit theater, this Saturday, April 5th at 3 p.m. And we're speaking with Jacob's Pillow's Norton Owen and Professor Emerita of Dance at Barnard College, Lynn Garafolo.
Norton, I have a question about, we've been talking about film directors that have been influenced by this particular film, but in your years at Jacob's Pillow, have you encountered more choreographers who were influenced by this work and what it meant?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think, again, it is such a foundational experience oftentimes for people, young people, but people of any age, to encounter this and have different ways of thinking about how you might present a dance on stage, how you might incorporate psychological elements with more storytelling elements, etc. And of course, there have been other evocations of this. I mean, there was a Broadway musical that took off from the film, and then also Matthew Bourne, who is most well known for his Swan Lake, but he also did a version of The Red Shoes, which attempted to bring the magic of the film and put it onto the stage. But I think, Khalees, what you're asking about is just other people being influenced or inspired by it in general. And of course, that is the case. I think, what I find thrilling is to see how many, as Monty was talking about, the filmmakers who have been inspired by this, aside from the genre of dance or ballet, but just how groundbreaking it is in a conceptual way and technological way. Amazing that we can see something that goes back nearly 80 years at this point and still be knocked out by the look of it. It's magical. And of course, that is something that influences people, even to this day.
From a historical point of view, it's wonderful to have that kind of film of Leonid Massine, the Mad Shoemaker. Mm-hmm. He's someone who was fascinated himself by film at a very early age, had a little camera and would record dancing in Spain for the first time, et cetera, et cetera. But he himself was never recorded in his youth because technology just didn't really exist that way. So it's wonderful to have this really sensitive recording of him as a dancer, as an actor, when he was 50 years old. And of course, to have a film like that of Moira Shearer, again, a rising ballerina of the late 1940s, but filmed with sensitivity so you can see her beauty as a dancer, her technique, her ability to act. She's a wonderful actress, which is not true of all dancers, but it's also a reflection on the directors, that they were able to elicit these kinds of dramatically stirring performances for people who are also doing ballet at the highest level. Fantastic.
I think everybody seeing the film can understand how important it is that you actually have Moira Shearer herself as both the actress and the dancer, and how integrated that is, and how important it is that it is she herself doing the dancing.
The film is incredible, and you have an incredible opportunity to see this beautiful restoration that Martin Scorsese himself helped to oversee. It will be screened at the Triplex Cinema in Great Barrington this Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. as a benefit for the nonprofit theater, and presented in part by Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival. And we have been joined by Norton Owen, who's the Director of Preservation for Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival, and Professor Emerita of Dance at Barnard College, Lynn Garafolo. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We look forward to talking more.
Yeah, well, we might be coming to visit you next week.
I think we are. Also, I'm going to
Okay.
pitch that you should Cinema Storm Red Shoes and Suspiria together.
Okay, that would
Because,
be really cool.
like, the Argento, like, I don't want to...
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
talking
We're
about
talking
the
about
dance
film
aspect
nerds.
of this as opposed to the film aspect of this, but, like, the connecting points between Suspiria and the Red Shoes are amazing, especially if you get a chance to see them together.
Yeah, and the
Even if
horror.
they're not really doing most of the dancing themselves.
And now to celebrate the Lucky Shots' newest album with them in a live Music Friday appearance.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, homegrown in Hatfield, Massachusetts, and providing energy savings for their customers for over 10 years. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. It's Live Music Friday, and we're joined by one half of the Lucky Shots, toned down from the rock greatness that will erupt from the stage of JJ's Tavern in Florence this evening.
Last week, the Lucky Shots released their second full-length album, Second Tongue, following up the EP Hunter's Heart, which came out this past fall.
And tonight they'll celebrate with the release at a show at JJ's, along with Don't Tell Iris and some other local band called Extemper that one of the hosts of this show might know a little about.
I don't know anything
it's
about
not
that.
me.
We welcome to the studio half of the Lucky Shots, Gnome Shots, and Anand Nayak. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Hello.
Greetings.
Let's hear.
Just going to take 1 second and do a little correction. It's Anand.
Anand, I know you.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. We're
And
doing it.
that was just because we have the benefit of many listeners, so I thought I would kill
So
a
now
lot of
everyone in
birds
the valley
with one
knows
stone.
it's Anand. Just say Anand,
Anand.
and you're ready to go.
Let's
Speaking
hear
of ready to go,
Yeah,
this
let's
song
go.
is called I Hope You Do, and this was the first single on our new record. And we're going to play it for you right now. 2, 1, 2, 3. Did you ever shake the feeling that every breath you take is stealing? Did you ever find the answer to all the questions you were after? I hope you do, I hope you do, I hope you do. Did you ever tame the creature in your late night double feature? Did you ever make that movie about the way you see right through me? I hope you do, I hope you do, I hope you do. It's hard to get away when you're deep in it. Middle of the ocean, no land and no limit. No matter which direction you spin it, 1,000 lifetimes in every minute. I hope you do, I hope you do, I hope you do. Did you ever run a perfect race when you never drop first place? Did you throw your hands in the air to show the whole wide world you're there? I hope you do, I hope you do, I hope you do. It's hard to get away when you're deep in it. Middle of the ocean, no land and no limit. No matter which direction you spin it, 1,000 lifetimes in every minute. I hope you do, I hope you do, I hope you do. I hope you do.
Lucky Shots, celebrating their brand new second full-length album, Second Tongue, tonight at JJ's Tavern in Florence, and joining us here on the Fabulous 413 for Live Music Friday.
I was reading in Eric Danson's blog that you recorded this album a little bit differently from the last one. What felt differently about this second album when you went into the studio with the rest of your band?
Well, the thing is that the first record I had done, I did basically by myself. It was during the pandemic, and the band was on a hiatus, as you can imagine.
So was the world.
So was the world. Everybody was on hiatus, and so I, during that time, was getting a little antsy, and a friend of mine who lives in New York, who I collaborate with a lot, his name's Mayor Hamilton, and we picked some of the songs, and he helped me finish it up, and that was the first Lucky Shots record, which was kind of more of like just a Noam solo joint. So we had a great live set that we had sort of before the pandemic, and when we got back together 2 years ago for the release show for that album, the band just kind of had upped its game to the next level, I felt, and we gelled more, and we had all these more new songs. So I wanted to try recording with my band because they're all absolutely amazing. It can all play, do things that I would never think to do by myself when I'm, it's lonely when you're just in your attic by yourself. It's one of the things I love about bands is camaraderie and collaboration. And I have a really great band of awesome dudes who are wonderful at making my songs even better. So why not?
Fair.
So, we met on Nyack. Am I saying it right?
Almost.
Say it again.
Anand.
You know what? We have two of the hardest pronouncing names.
Because you say Noam, I just heard too.
Yeah, exactly.
Not Noam,
Yeah,
like
that's right.
Chomsky.
No.
Noam Shots.
I just have a sense of learned helplessness in correcting people. So.
We love it. I mean, correcting people is a form of love.
I don't know anything about that with my name.
Yeah,
exactly. Denise has two eyes in her
Boring
name.
Monty over here. No one ever pronounces that wrong.
It's not even my real name. It's easy to do. But another Monty produced your album.
That's right. Monty Arnstam up at, which I'm probably now saying that.
I know,
feel like I'm
his
saying
last
that
name
wrong.
correct? We're all over the place.
His studio is called 1357 up in Greenfield, and it's a real homey little spot, and he's a real supportive guy to have behind the board, which is almost more than technical knowledge. The most important thing for somebody in the session is the guy there to help cheer you on when you have doubts, right? So we recorded this up there, and we had put the songs together and practiced the shit out of. Oh, I can't say that.
No,
practiced
you
the dickens
can't.
out of them, and then went and recorded them straight through. So.
Well, let's do a song that really has no other words like that in it.
Oh, this has been something. Here we go.
Wait, before we do, we'll say our farewells,
Yes.
and then we'll have you play us out.
Yes.
Sorry about that. This song is called
Wait,
Second
one
Tongue.
second. 1 second. Next week on the Fabulous 413, despite the ongoing federal cuts that the arts have, the arts are still among us.
And we're going to where they take us.
Which means a live show for National Poetry Month, probably with lots of other swears, at the Emily Dickinson Museum.
And a trip to Beckett to see a phoenix-like edifice rise from the literal ashes at Jacob's Pillow.
And we'll check out a new film with a lot of local ties with the movie Urban Ed.
And get to chat with phenomenal drummer Nikki Glaspie and hear the alt-country strains of Sylvie's OK for Live Music Friday.
Plus, we'll meet the new director of the Buy Local Folks at CISA. This band playing tonight at JJ's Tavern in
With
Florence.
my band.
With Khalees's band, Extemper. Live Music Friday. It's the Lucky Shots.
All right. I hope I didn't hurt your budget funding as
Well,
per the earlier conversation.
no, don't worry. There's nothing in jeopardy with it at all anyway.
You are the third time we've had to use the dump button.
Okay, this song is the title song from our new record. It's called Second Tongue, and it's about playing video games with my kids. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like reading a book in another language. The words change, but it means the same thing. A second tongue can reveal the answer. Keep on speaking, I'll keep listening. You were talking and I heard you out. You were singing and I was so damn proud. I want to teach you how to navigate. Every game needs rules to operate. Take a second to cement the thought. Push it down so it gets really caught. The next time we stumble on this place, we will meet its mystery with grace. Like reading a book in another language. The words change, but it means the same thing. The second tongue can reveal the answer. Keep on speaking now, keep listening. Waited for the owl to float on down. Wandered from the forest to the town. So many artifacts we couldn't see, but we found them, you and me. We unrolled the map and turned it gold. Signs and symbols and our fortune told. Who can say when the story ends? We keep finding more and more, my friend. Like reading a book in another language. The words change, but it means the same thing. A second tongue can reveal the answer. Keep on speaking now, keep listening, and hoping, and waiting, and dreaming.
Lucky Shots, this Live Music Friday. We're now in the bonus portion of the...
Yes, where I'm going to ask one extra question.
The podcast portion, where you could swear if you wanted, but we recommend you don't.
We recommend you
Yeah,
don't,
that's
just in case.
You know, the problem with being friends with you guys is that sitting here, I feel like I'm just talking to my friends.
Yeah.
So.
We try to encourage that sort of environment.
I literally can't believe that I've never sworn on the radio in 25 years of doing radio.
that's...
I swear all the time.
That's impressive.
Yeah. I don't have as long a pedigree, but I am also surprised. And that includes the time that I was going out live recording at the river, didn't know we were live.
Right.
And Barb had to come in and be like, police, get out of program. And I'm like, what? Oh no.
Anywho.
So Anand.
Yes.
You're in a ton of projects in the Valley. What sticks out about collaborating with the Lucky Shots for you?
So many things. I mean, for one thing, I've always loved great songwriting. I feel like Noam is a great songwriter, and I've watched him become that, which is has been a real treat, seeing all the work that he's put into it. So there's that. There's a camaraderie, and there's a spirit that the band has of, I don't know, how would you put it, Noam? You say this often. It's just like you just want it to be fun and chill.
Yes, I have a very big rule I've set out at the outset, which is that I do not want my band to cause anybody who plays with me stress. Because to me, this is not about making our lives harder. This is about making our lives better.
Yeah.
So I try to invite people in, and the guys in my band are all people who have played with a million people. And they didn't really even know each other, and now we're all really good friends and have a wonderful time, and we're open to hearing from each other their ideas, and it's just a very nice kind of exchange that goes on.
So the vibe.
Loving
And
the
Norman and I
vibe.
have known each other for like 30 years too,
Right.
so
Right.
it's special because like, you know, we go way back, and so it's just gotten more and more the closeness that comes when you sing harmony together and write songs together and put all this stuff together. It's very, very nice.
Cool.
Everyone out there should join a band. It's a wonderful thing to do.
That's true.
Not this band necessarily, but a band.
I'm auditioning lead guitar player.
Oh, no, don't.
No, just kidding.
Well, thanks both of you for coming in today.
Thank you.
We really appreciate
Thanks for
it.
having us.
Thank you so much.
And Break a Leg tonight, Khalees, and Lucky Shots.
That's
We
right.
have a new cover in the set. I don't know how it's going to go.
It's going to be
yeah?
so great.
I don't know.
It'll be a friendly crowd, so friendly crowd. I like to think.
Cool.
Thank you, guys.